Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're focusing on what feels like a central tension in professional life, really.
Mhm.
This constant push for speed, right? Versus the need for, well, wisdom.
Absolutely.
We see leaders getting celebrated for making quick decisions, quick calls, but our sources today argue pretty forcefully that there's this hidden cost.
Yeah, the cost is discernment, deep understanding. That tension you mentioned, that's really the core challenge today, I think.
Okay.
Because the landscape, it doesn't just reward speed anymore. It rewards people who can discern deeply.
Deeply.
Think about the work that really matters now.
Yeah.
It's not defined by clarity. Usually it's complexity that's growing,
Right.
teams overlapping, global supply chains. I mean, one choice can ripple out and just reshape whole systems almost overnight. We're not just managing straightforward projects anymore.
We're navigating ecosystems, living things.
Exactly. Living ecosystems. That's a great way to put it.
So that's our mission for this deep dive, to kind of shortcut your path, help you get really well informed on how to navigate these complex choices.
Mhm.
The goal is shifting, right, from just reacting to acting wisely. And that means leaving behind some old frameworks that, frankly, assume things are simpler than they are.
Yeah, those old models break down fast.
And digging into these sources, one thing became really clear. The biggest failure in leadership today, it isn't always making the wrong choice. Sometimes it's making what could be the right choice just too fast.
Too quickly, yeah.
Yeah.
Before you really understand the terrain, that's where things collapse.
Okay, so let's unpack this first crucial step, because we often fail, not because we aren't smart or don't have resources, but like you said, we just fundamentally misread the situation.
Exactly. We jumped the gun.
We try to apply a simple fix to something that's actually deeply complex. So let's start there. What is the key difference between complicated and complex?
Okay, this distinction is, well, it unlocks everything, really. We're used to dealing with things that are complicated. Complexity, though, that's the hidden force, making these big decisions so tough.
How so?
It happens when variables just multiply like crazy, when you can't really predict the outcome just from the inputs anymore, And when even your best intentions, your well-meaning choices, have these totally unpredictable ripple effects, nonlinear effects.
Okay, so give us that core analogy, the one that makes this distinction really stick.
Right. Let's use two metaphors. Think of complicated like a high-end racing engine, super finely tuned,
Lots of parts.
hundreds of parts, yeah.
Yeah.
Needs deep expertise to understand it, runs with incredible precision. But here's the key. Its function is ultimately predictable.
Right. Cause and effect are clear.
Exactly. If you take it apart and rebuild it perfectly, following the manual, you get the exact same engine back. It's a machine.
Okay, the machine is complicated. So what's complex?
The complex system, that's the forest.
A forest. Okay.
It's an emergent system. It organizes itself. It's constantly adapting, evolving. One little sapling grows. It changes the light hitting the ground.
Which affects the microbes in the soil.
Exactly. Which changes moisture retention, which affects everything else.
Wow.
You can't just disassemble a forest and put it back together the same way.
No.
You can intervene, sure, but predicting exactly how it will adapt, very difficult.
And for everyone listening, this isn't just theory, right? This complexity shows up at work all the time. Our sources point to 4 key ways. First, ambiguity.
Yeah. Incomplete info, contradictory data, makes it hard to even define the problem clearly.
Second, those conflicting priorities. That's when every stakeholder has a totally legitimate goal, but they clash.
Oh, absolutely. And that happens constantly.
But you mentioned something earlier, non-linearity. That sounds like the really dangerous one.
It is. It's the hallmark of complexity. A small input, a tiny change, causes this disproportionately huge, surprising output. Think about a minor tweak to some software feature, right? Seems simple, but somehow it breaks a totally unrelated, older system when you push it live.
Ah, okay. Seen that happen.
In a complicated system, input kind of matches output, predictably. In a complex system, the output is often this explosion of unintended consequences you just didn't see coming.
So this is where the standard leadership playbook just kind of breaks down, isn't it? That linear logic. Identify the problem, find the solution, make a plan.
Right. That whole approach. It's built for the complicated machine, not the adaptive forest.
So if we accept we're in the forest, navigating complexity, what do we need instead? The sources suggest a new kind of intelligence.
Yeah, it's rooted in awareness. and, frankly, humility. The shift we need is profound. It's moving the goalpost away from just making quick decisions.
Towards deep recognition.
Exactly. Success hinges entirely on recognizing the nature of the situation before you decide how to act.
Because leaders who skip that step,
They often make these really confident decisions, look great on paper, maybe even get praised for decisiveness. But then the whole thing collapses weeks later. Why? Because they ignored all those hidden dependencies lurking under the surface.
their failure wasn't lack of effort, it was.
It was the failure to pause, to really see.
So the strategic advantage today isn't necessarily speed, it's the pause.
It absolutely is.
Mhm.
The leaders who really thrive, who get that edge, they pause where other people just react on impulse. They map the system first, then they move the pieces. Wisdom, it doesn't start with having all the answers. It starts with the humility to admit how much you don't yet know about the system you're about to mess with.
That pause, it transforms a reaction into a reflective, strategic choice.
Precisely.
It's fascinating. The sources actually connect this idea, this discipline of seeing deeply to ancient narrative structures, like parables.
That's right. It suggests humans have understood this for a long time, even if we didn't use the word complexity.
How do parables fit in?
Well, think about it. Instead of trying to simplify the world into neat rules, these parables, they're inherently complex stories themselves, right? Layers of meaning. They invite you, the listener, to engage in that deep perception. They're almost like teaching tools designed for complexity. They demand you move past just the surface facts to uncover the systemic truth underneath. They force you to recognize patterns in messy, ambiguous situations.
Okay, let's look at how these narratives actually work as like training grounds for dealing with complexity. They teach us that context is everything, right? Take the parable of the sower.
Yeah, found in Matthew's Gospel. This story is brilliant at illustrating that context matters, hugely. The same message, the seed, it's scattered everywhere, but the results, wildly different.
Why?
Depends entirely on the soil it lands on. Some falls on rocky ground, withers quickly. Other seeds falls among thorns, gets choked out.
And the text explains the soil represents what?
It represents those unseen factors. Things like distractions, worldly worries, shallow understanding the stuff a purely linear model would just ignore.
So if you, say, launched a product, the seed, into two different markets, the soil,
Right.
and it failed in one but flew in the other, a simple analysis asks, what's wrong with the seed? What's wrong with the product?
But the parable forces you to analyze the system, the soil. What were the conditions in that market where it failed?
Got it. Okay, now consider the parable of the weeds, also for Matthew 13. This seems to speak even more directly to complexity.
Oh, it does. It's about the consequences of acting too soon in a complex system. A field owner finds out an enemy secretly sowed weeds among his wheat.
And the workers naturally want to rush in and fix it, pull up all the weeds immediately.
Right, that's the instinctive problem-solving reaction. But the master tells them, no, don't do it.
Why not?
Because, he says, in trying to rip out the weeds, you'll inevitably uproot the good stuff, the weed along with them. Their roots are intertwined. That's perhaps the most critical lesson for complexity. Good and, let's say, undesirable elements are often tangled together in the same system. Trying to make a clean, immediate separation can actually be destructive.
So you need patience, timing.
Exactly. It forces us to accept that sometimes resolution takes time. Patience is required. Acting prematurely, even with the best motives, like wanting a perfect weed-free field, can cause severe, unforeseen damage to the whole system's health.
That really is the definition of wise restraint, isn't it? Resisting that constant pressure for the quick fix, the instant cleanup. It forces you to ask, okay, where in my organization or my project am I trying to rip out weeds right now? Maybe it's a process that's not perfect or a team member who's struggling.
Right.
Am I about to damage the wheat, the necessary learning, the long-term potential just because I want things neat and tidy today? Are we sacrificing the system's health for a quick cosmetic win?
Yeah.
Okay. So recognizing complexity is one thing, but the real test is avoiding paralysis, right? You accept the ambiguity, but you still need to act. So how do we actually structure our analysis?
Yeah, knowing it's complex isn't enough. You need tools.
And this brings us to the practical toolkit offered in the sources, something they call the complexity audit.
Right. The audit is basically how you take that messy, overwhelming feeling of chaos and turn it into a structured challenge you can actually tackle.
What's the first tool?
First up is stakeholder mapping. And this is way more than just listing names on a chart.
Okay.
It's identifying not just who is affected by a decision, but crucially, how their interests connect, and often how they conflict. That's key,
So it's the difference between just listing, say, the marketing team
right?
and actually understanding that marketing is incentivized for generating a high volume of leads, which might directly conflict with the sales team's incentives.
Which is for high-quality, conversion-ready leads.
Exactly. Their incentives put them potentially at odds, even though they're on the same broader team.
And within that mapping, the sources say we have to look for specific types of stakeholders.
Yes. You must actively look for the silent stakeholders, and also those who bear the invisible cost.
Who are they? They're the people who end up absorbing the negative fallout from your decisions. Maybe it's the overworked junior staff cleaning up messes, or customers dealing with a buggy product, but they often have the least power or voice in the decision itself.
And ignoring them creates huge blind spots.
Massive blind spots in your view of the whole ecosystem. Okay, tool number 2.
Dependency analysis. This sounds like mapping out those ripple effects we talked about.
Precisely. You need to map how different parts of the system rely on each other. Think inputs, outputs. Who needs what from whom?
Let's use that example from the source again. Sarah, the designer, and Mark, the developer who focuses on quality control.
Okay, so in a typical workflow, Sarah's design is the input for Mark's detailed development work.
Right.
Right. Now imagine Sarah's under pressure, needs to deliver fast. So she hands off a design that maybe has a few known issues, her corners cut. Mark is now critically dependent on that flawed input.
So if Mark flags the issues, which he should,
The delay looks like it's his fault, even though the problem started upstream with Sarah's rushed delivery. You have to map those dependencies. Who relies on what? What happens if a resource or an input is late or not up to par?
that connects directly to tool number 3, which feels really powerful for getting past the surface level, root cause analysis.
Yes. This is about digging deeper. When you see conflict flare up, like Sarah and Mark constantly battling over deadlines and quality,
The easy explanation is personality clash, or maybe skill gaps.
right, that's the surface symptom. The audit forces you to go deeper, often using a technique like the 5 whys.
Okay, walk us through that with Sarah and Mark.
Sure. So, why is there conflict between them? Because Mark keeps rejecting Sarah's designs. That's the symptom.
Okay, why number 1?
Why is Mark rejecting them? Because they consistently fail the quality control checks he runs?
Why number 2?
Okay, why are the designs failing QC? Because Sarah admits she had to rush them to meet a really aggressive deadline.
Why number 3? Getting closer.
Why was her deadline so aggressive? Because leadership primarily incentivizes Sarah based on speed and the volume of designs she outputs.
Why number 4? And the final why.
Why is Mark incentivized differently? Because Mark's performance, his incentives, are based on meticulous quality and preventing long-term technical debt or maintenance problems.
And boom, there it is. The root cause isn't Sarah or Mark's personalities.
Not at all. It's systemic. It's ambiguity in their roles, maybe, but definitely misaligned incentives. You're rewarding two people for fundamentally competing behaviors on the exact same piece of work.
So the goal of the complexity audit isn't just analysis for its own sake.
No, not at all. It's about transforming that surface problem, the fighting, into a structured challenge you can actually solve by addressing the systemic root cause, the misalignment. You stop just firefighting the symptom.
And start building more resilient, better aligned systems.
So when you synthesize all this, understanding and recognizing complexity, it isn't about hesitation or being slow. It's actually leadership at its most mature. It's the discipline, really, of seeing deeply before you act decisively. It means letting go of that illusion that things should be simple, and instead proactively shaping how you respond to the messy, dynamic, complex world we actually live and work in.
Moving from reacting to complexity to responding thoughtfully to it.
Precisely.
And I think the big takeaway from the sources today is that true clarity, it doesn't come from seeking certainty, which is often just a mirage anyway.
Right.
It comes from being relentlessly curious about the systems playing out all around us.
Well said. And that curiosity needs to keep pushing you to broaden your view. So maybe a final thought for you to mull over as you apply this.
Okay.
After you've done your mapping, after you've tried to understand the system, ask yourself this: whose voice is still missing? Who is that silent stakeholder, the one bearing the invisible cost that isn't represented in your decision-making process? And what crucial blind spot does their absence create in your overall ecosystem view? Because answering that question, that might just be the key to your next real breakthrough.